Kingdom family, kingdom family, kingdom family. What's up, everybody? Oh my gosh. I am so honored and so grateful to be here with all of you for the kingdom. If this is your first time here, I want you to make sure you type the words first time into the chat box and you will see our entire community welcome you here. And make sure you all type in where you're coming in from. We have a very special session today. And the kingdom is, you can think of it like if Church Super Soul Sunday and a TED Talk had a baby. This is spiritual church for everybody. I don't care what you believe in, whether it's God, crystal science, higher power, the universe, fairies, whatever it is, you're welcome here. And you'll see that our family here in the chat box will welcome you with open arms. And those of you who are listening or watching in other ways, we welcome you as well. And I'm so grateful to have each and every one of you here. Today's session is going to be incredibly powerful. Our session today is on the power of calling in the one. The one. And I want you to listen carefully, even if you're already in a relationship with somebody romantically, even if you've been married for a long time, whether you've been married forever, with somebody forever, in a partnership forever, or not with anybody at all, and you're looking for the love of your life, you will be shocked at how this session today helps you become who you need to be to step into the relationship that is of your dreams, that helps you take your life and intimacy and connection to the next level. And we have no one other than, it's the best person that could talk to us about this today, is New York Times Bestselling author, Katherine. Siri just started talking to me. Katherine Woodward Thomas. Katherine Woodward Thomas, who is a New York Times bestselling author. I will formally introduce you to her in a moment. But before we begin, because I know there are a lot of new folks here, the kingdom, every time we begin with some form of art, music, a poem, song, and then I'll do a prayer. And when I do the prayer, I'll give about 60 seconds of silence for you to welcome in your personal prayer. And then we have a teaching, a practice, and an action, and we move into taking this into our lives. And then a few announcements just before we begin. Every Wednesday night, so the kingdom is every other Sunday live, but every Wednesday night, our community comes together. Again, this is for free. All of this is for free. It's our gift to you, my gift to you. And we come together on Wednesday night for soul study. But remember, you won't get the link to soul study unless you sign up. And so I'll put the link here in the chat box for you as well. But the link is justinmichaelwilliams.com/soul-study. And you'll get the Zoom link. And the difference between soul study and the kingdom is you all chatting in the chat box. You could be in your robe or doing whatever you want, in the bathtub, in the bed, watching and listening along. Soul study is where we come together in community. We get to dive deeper on this. Think of it like Bible study, but instead of focusing just on the Bible, we're focusing on the big concepts from the kingdom and unpacking them, discussing them with each other. You come to engage and participate. And even if you don't want to be on camera, you can just be there and listen. But come be with this incredible community at Soul Study. And then finally, the Kingdom Choir. We have a virtual global choir from all over the world. And we are just getting started on our first song together. And it will get presented to you all very soon. If you want to join the choir, doesn't matter if you can sing or not, if you've always wanted to sing, if you were in choir before, anything, all voices are welcome. Just go to wecandreambigger.org/choir and you'll get all the information on our next rehearsal and how to join the Kingdom Choir. 1 second. Ooh. I'm sorry, y'all. Anyway, here we are. So that's the Kingdom Choir. And let us begin now with our prayer. Place your hands over the center of your chest. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so. Take a deep, full breath in and a deep breath out. And just grounding, one more deep breath in and out. God, Spirit, Universe, all that is, all that ever has been, and all that ever will be, we thank you. Thank you for bringing this community together from all over the world. Let us remember that even in times of fear, even in times of hopelessness, that this community is a light. May you spread light and love and healing to all of those who are impacted by all the crazy things that are happening in this world. And may we know that in each moment, we still get to choose. Please remind us that we get to choose who we want to be in relationship to everything that's happening in this world around us. Let us remember to be love. Let us remember to be light. Let us remember to be the one. This is your moment now to welcome in your personal prayer. God, Spirit, Universe, all that is, all that ever has been, and all that ever will be, we thank you. Thank you for bringing this community together. Let every word that is spoken inspire the hearts and minds of everyone listening. May every word coming out of our special guest's mouth today be inspirational and remind us of the power of who we are. May we remember our truth, that we are love. So it is. Ashe, Aho, Salam, Amen, Satnam, Awen, Om. Thank you. So here we are, Kingdom Family. Here we are, Kingdom Family. I'm so grateful to be here with all of you today. And in just a moment, we are going to do a song. And this song is Stand By Me, which I think many of you have heard this song before. We sang it last Kingdom. And the words are, when the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. No, I won't be afraid. Oh, I won't be afraid just as long as you stand by me. So darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me, stand by me. And it continues on. And really the message of this song and the reason why I'm doing Stand By Me is to remember that we rise together, that this world has to come together for us to see a change. And it's up to us to show up in that way. So I'm going to grab my guitar here for just a moment. All right, everybody. And this is Stand By Me. And may we stand by each other, this beautiful community that we have built here together. So you'll see the words and feel free to sing along. When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. You know the words, come on. No, I won't be afraid. No, I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me. Everybody, come on. So darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me. Here's the second verse. Everybody, come on. If the sky that we look upon should tumble and fall, or the mountains should crumble to the sea, I won't cry. I won't cry, no, I won't shed a tear. Even though we like crying, just as long as you stand by me. Everybody, come on. So darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand One more for your heart, for this whole community. Darling, everybody stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me. So just feel that as a prayer. Feel it in your heart, that even if the sky should tumble and fall, we will be okay as long as we continue to stand by each other. I'm so grateful for this amazing community, whether you have been here for a couple of years since we've been gathering, or whether this is your first time coming to the kingdom. You are welcome here, and I love you. So thank you for being here, and let's stand together. So one of the things that you all should know as we begin our lesson is that if you hear me say anything, because I know there's a lot of new people here today, or anybody else say anything, our special guests say anything, in the chat box, I want you, if they say anything that makes you want to say like, yeah, girl, or amen, or I'm with you, or I got you, you just type the number 1 into the chat box a whole bunch of times, and you'll see everybody do it now. And this is our way of like throwing our ones up and exchanging energy with one another. And if you hear Katherine or I or anybody else say a quote that you want to remember, just type in the quote so that you can remember it, okay? And this will help us have this cascade of golden nuggets that we can all take home with us after this session. And so it is with great, great pleasure that I bring you all into this session today on the power of calling in the one. Calling in the one. And I think you're going to be surprised at how we engage in this conversation today. But I have just the most incredible person to bring here today. She is the author and New York Times bestselling author, Katherine Woodward Thomas. And this book, Calling in the One, has changed the trajectory of my life. And I'll tell you how soon. And in a moment, I'm going to read an official bio for Katherine. But what I want you all to know is Katherine Woodward Thomas, for me, is like the gold star of teachers. Like, I mean, just lives it through and through. The transformational practices will change your life. We are so lucky to have her here. And I'm going to read her bio to you right now. So just to give you the professional bit, all right? So Katherine Woodward Thomas, first of all, has been featured by like every media publication that exists, by the New York Times, the Today Show, Time Magazine, the Wall Street Journal, People Magazine, Women's Health, the list is endless. And she is the author of the New York Times bestseller that I know you've heard of, Conscious Uncoupling, 5 Steps to Living Happily Even After, and the national bestseller, Calling in the One, 7 Weeks to Attract the Love of Your Life, which is what we're talking about today. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist and teacher to thousands, including me, from all corners of the world. And her virtual communities are super diverse, every age range, every color, every demographic that you can possibly think of, every gender, every sexual identity. And Katherine is the originator, just to be clear here, because I know y'all hear about conscious uncoupling all the time. She is the originator of the conscious uncoupling process. And to date, Katherine has trained and credentialed hundreds of people as certified coaches, including conscious uncoupling coaches and Calling in the One coaches. And I'm taking a little page from Katherine's book and how she does interviews in her world right now. And I want to read y'all something from 2 very special people. So first of all, this is a quote from Alanis Morissette, y'all, okay, that says, Katherine, grounded in fierce tenderness, has been an inspiring force for me for years. She is a visionary whose passion for both personal and global fulfillment is felt through her writing, presence, and teachings. I'm so grateful for her. That's Alanis Morissette. And then from Marianne Williamson, who's been a guest here on The Kingdom, many of you know, says, Katherine is a woman I look to for wisdom and counsel. How wonderful that her advice is available to all. And we're going to bring Katherine up on the stage in just a moment here, but I want to make sure that you all know, and we're going to talk about this later, that Katherine has something, a webinar that you can all watch if you want to dive deeper, because we're going to go as deep as we possibly can in this short amount of time that we have together. But if you want to go deeper, Katherine has a webinar that you can enjoy, and I'm going to put the link into the chat box now, about learning if coaching is your sacred calling. because I know so many of you want to go out into the world and spread light and spread love and help people transform their lives. And Katherine is the best coach trainer that there is. And so I just wanted to talk about that before I bring her on stage. We'll have time to talk about it a little bit more later, but without you at this moment, I would like to introduce you all to my friend, Katherine Woodward Thomas. Katherine, what's up?
I love you so much. You are so generous.
I love you. Oh my God.
Hi, everyone. It's so fun to be with you all.
Oh my gosh. Well, Katherine, we're so grateful to have you here. I just want people to realize like how lucky we are to have you here. And just first of all, just to be able to call you a friend. You know, Katherine and I roll in a similar circle, and also a teacher, because your work really has transformed my life. And people know on the Kingdom that I only have people here who I feel's work is just in the deepest integrity, and yours is at the top of that list. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So I want to just jump in on one thing with you, Katherine, with this topic of calling in the one. Okay. So why did you choose to write this book?
Well, you just read that gorgeous bio. So everybody's very impressed with me, all the things that I've done. But I didn't do any of that till I was in my 40s.
Hello.
Okay, I just have to tell you, I really didn't accomplish a whole heck of a lot before that because I was so busy sorting out my drama traumas, many of them relational. So if you had told me like 30 years ago that I would be a known, recognized, award-winning relationship expert, I would have thought you were talking to the wrong person.
Yeah.
Because it was an area that was completely disastrous in my life and very painful. Like I'm saying it, in good humor now. But I grew up with a lot of relational trauma. My mother was really young when she got pregnant and then had to get, back then it was the 50s, so you had to get married to the person you got pregnant with. And it was a shame-based relationship. They were ill-matched. The whole thing blew up very quickly. My mother was a young college student putting herself through college while she had this baby, which back then was a shame. I mean, it was just one thing like that. So that kind of trauma kind of characterized my whole early life. And of course, predictably, that impacted relationships when I was in my 20s and my 30s. So my relationships were characterized by a lot of push-pull, a lot of anxiety, and a very anxious attachment style. And at the same time, I was completely love avoidant. So I was terrified to be close and hungry, like desperately hungry to be close at the same time, which generally meant that I was having like very intense affairs with married people. That would just kind of, right? I mean, that's the way to solve that problem.
Right.
You're not really going to stay too long.
And fall in love with that, right?
Exactly. And have these impassioned experiences that were peak experiences, but they were unsustainable. And then consequently, I was suffering with a broken heart most of the time, really. And I'm so relational by nature. I mean, it was just so painful to be in that. And I was working on myself from a very young age. I had deep spiritual experiences when I was a teenager. I was kind of the kid who was like in the bathroom at high school with a cigarette hanging out of my mouth, reading Bible passages to my friends. I mean, that's
great.
Because I started smoking at the age of 10, because, if you're not in a family that's holding you, you can get into all sorts of trouble. So I had kind of a rocky start, but I had this grace on my life of knowing that there was a force and field of life greater than me, and somehow I was loved. And I would have these kind of peak experiences that were spiritual experiences. The desire to make a difference and be of service was born in me when I was really young, just a drive to somehow contribute to the world in a meaningful way. But I really was too messed up. I mean, for a few years in my 20s, I was actually unemployable because I had this eating disorder that just was taking me out all the time. So I couldn't show up consistently for anything. So I certainly by the time I was in my 30s, was really pretty hopeless that this was ever going to work out for me. And, we find ways to make our lives beautiful, even though we have these, places in our lives that we struggle. So I was doing pretty great things. And I was working with the homeless, actually. I was becoming a psychotherapist, really, because I was working on myself so much. I just kind of organically wound up in graduate school. But my life wasn't changing. The patterns weren't really changing. I was getting better, slow and steady progress. I certainly understood why I was the way I was, but it wasn't changing. And it wasn't until I was in my early 40s that I started to stumble upon these metaphysical principles of setting intentions and living from the future backwards. I'm beginning to try on the possible self of that future. Like, what does it feel like to be in a healthy relationship? I mean, that was like, you might have asked me, what does it feel like to be, living in the rural fields of China? I mean, I had just no concept, but I do have an imagination, and I do have a very strong will, thank God for it. And so just one step at a time, I first of all, I was in this group of people that we're all setting intentions together. And since then, and I'm happy to share this with everybody, I didn't know this at the time, but thank God I did it. Because, when you set an intention with people who are holding you, who are bonded with you, who are invested in your success, studies have shown that it's 6 times more likely to manifest, right? So this whole community, we're in this together, we're standing with and for each other. It's really deep. So I call a friend from this group on the heels of yet another failed love affair. And I say to her, Naomi, I'm going to set a really radical, pretty unreasonable intention to be engaged by my 42nd birthday. And that was 8 months out. No prospects.
That's what I love in the book. When you wrote about this in the book, you were like, when I first went by my 42nd birthday, and I'm like, oh my God, it's in 8 months and you have nobody. Like, that's
nobody. And I've been trying to do this for 20 years, right?
Yeah.
She said something actually that changed my life. She was so wise. She said to me, Katherine, I'm going to hold that intention with you and for you. If you give me permission to hold you accountable for being the woman you would need to be in order for that to happen. And I was shocked when she said that, because, I sometimes think that we confuse wanting something with actually being a space to receive something.
Oh, hello. I need everybody to type that into the chat box. We confuse wanting something with actually being in the space to hold something, to have it.
Yeah.
Yes.
To receive it into our lives and to sustain it.
Yeah.
Right. And having of it. Yes. So what her comment did for me is, instead of running out like a crazy person trying to get a ring on my finger, I actually went within and I began to look at myself as the source of my experience. Like, what are my hidden obstacles to love? How am I responsible for the patterns that I struggle with? Now, I'm a psychotherapist by this time. It's not like I haven't been doing my work. And I've been working on myself years in therapy, years 12-step, transformational seminars, all these wonderful things. But I'd never really 110% owned myself as the source of my patterns. It was always like, my mother did this. She was a narcissist. My father left. And that's now I'm imprinted with this. And I'm kind of stuck with this. This was a really different conversation. And to even ask myself questions that were not shame-based, like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? Which is how most of us self-reflect. But I started to really ask myself questions like, okay, how am I giving my power away to other people? And what's motivating me to do that? Is that true? Is that not true? What might be more true? And what would I need to do to start to show up with greater self-respect, in a way that's more honoring of myself? Once I started to look to own myself as the source of my patterns, I started to see so many things, incompletions in my past. I mean, I saw one of the things we look at in Calling in the One, which you know, Justin, is that we look at what are your outdated loyalties? Like, what are the agreements you've made with people along the way? And certainly there's agreements that we make, you know, with lovers in a moment of passion, like you're the only one I'll ever love. But I remembered a very specific agreement with my high school boyfriend, Frank. And we were together very, very bonded for almost 4 years. We were going to get married, and, you know, but of course, when we're 18, then he wants to go into the business, his family's business. I want to go to college. It just wasn't the right thing. And we broke up. But I was so heartbroken about it that I said to him, okay, well, let's break up now. But when we're in our 60s, after we've made all our choices, we'll come back together and we'll get married then, which of course was a ludicrous thing to say. And then he gets married next year to the next person who comes into his life.
Gosh.
There's this part of me that's like just waiting for him to get divorced. But what if he gets divorced? I need to be single when I'm in my 60s, right? Like, you know, this kind of Romeo Juliet high drama. I also saw another agreement that I'd made to myself in my heart. One of the deepest woundings was when my mother remarried her third husband, because she was a kid. She was trying so hard to find her way and figure herself out. She didn't have a lot of family support. She had this kid she was responsible for. So she's trying to get it right. Because back then in the 60s, like, women were looked down upon if they were single mothers, really. So she marries her third husband. She wants to now suddenly like have a cohesive, respectable family. So she doesn't want my dad in the picture. So he ends up agreeing to give me up for adoption. He basically lets go of his parental rights and he never says goodbye. And I adore my dad. So when I hear from my mother that he's not my father anymore, and he's so not my father that she would call the police if he so much as stepped on her property. I think just something in me just broke in two internally. And I made a decision that I was never going to get hurt like that again. And I saw, when I started to really look, how am I the source of this? How is this working for me to substitute drama for love? And I saw, I have this agreement to myself, my little 10-year-old made. And I've been defending against ever being broken like that again. So I had to have a little talk with my 10-year-old. And I said, Angel, please, I understand, but we're grown now. And I have skills, and I can negotiate, and I can pace things, and I can protect myself in healthy ways. We don't need to shut out love and, substitute all this heartbreak for really someone actually showing up for us. So I like to say I put my little 10-year-old, I got her out of the driver's seat of the car. I buckled her up safely in the back seat. I said, Mama's driving the car now. So this is the kind of work I was doing. But the practicality is that all of you can do right now. You can start it today. Anything that you're committed to that looks like it's an impossible dream, you start with that future. You start with that unreasonable intention, and you sit on your meditation cushion every day, and you imagine what it might feel like, what it might sound like, what it might look like to be living that dream. And you're asking yourself, who am I in this? One of the things that happened after I did, so this is a spoiler alert, I did actually call in the one. And I was about a year or two into that relationship, and we got pregnant the organic way. When I was 43, I gave birth to our child, my first baby. And I was pregnant with her, and I found some of my old journals when I was doing the Calling in the One process, and I was writing about being in the kitchen, and my belly was big, and my sweet husband came up and kissed my neck. And I'm reading this and I'm thinking, what? I didn't write this last week, but this is what happened last. And I had to go back and I checked the dates and check the calendar. I wrote it 4 months before I met my man. So so that's what I was doing. I was trying on that possible self of the future. But then I had to ask myself 4 critical questions. So somebody write this down.
Get ready to write these in, y'all.
Okay. The first question, who am I in this future? And you want to hang out there and not intellectually, like, who am I in my body? I'm a person who feels loved. I'm stable. I'm supported, I'm nourished, I'm capable of being in this relationship. So I'm less reactive. I'm generative of cohesion. I know how to engage conflict. Like, who is this version of me that I have not yet met? You try that on in your body as much as you can stand expanding your capacity. The next question, what would I need to let go of in order to find my way to this future? Well, I had to let go of Frank, that young, idealistic agreement. And I didn't want to call him because he was still married to that same woman. I didn't want to upset his life. So I just brought him into what I call a soul to soul meditation. And I had this little heart to heart. And I said, I love you. I'm sorry I hurt you. Please forgive me. And I cannot keep that agreement anymore. Now, I will tell you something that is so wild. I cried, a little tissue here and there, but I got up and I was free for the first time. I did get a chance to talk to Frank maybe 8 years later. We had this beautiful conversation because once Calling in the One came out, I write about that in the book, and one of our mutual friends called him and said, "You're in this book." Mm-hmm. So we had this, and he facilitated us talking, and we had this beautiful healing heart to heart. But I said to him, he confessed to me, "Oh, I thought about you a lot. I dreamt about you for years too. It was actually an issue in my marriage," he said. I said, "Well,
wow.
When did it stop?" And he thought for a minute. He said, "I don't know, 8 years ago."
And that was right when you had broke the karmic agreement. You broke the agreement.
I had the soul to soul. That's how connected we all are, everyone. Yeah. If you're incomplete with someone in your past, they're feeling it too. And you can work it out on a soul level. This is all the forgiveness work. Forgive yourself, completing the agreements. So this was, me doing Calling in the One. Where am I still tethered to the past? What parts of me are not available? I saw that resentment was huge, because if I was still resentful, and oh, by the way, if I was still resentful of like a former love, it meant that I wasn't, they might have been horrible, but it meant also that I wasn't taking responsibility for my part in that breakdown. All my focus was on them, what they did that they shouldn't have done. And I hadn't really looked at, well, who was I being? How did I even give them permission to get to that point with me? How was I debasing myself, disrespecting myself? So once you see that clearly, you look, I call it 97-3, 97% their fault. But what's your 3%? Right?
What's your 3%? Even if it is 97% their fault, the 3% that is yours is the only thing you can do anything with, right?
And it's probably 97% their fault. Like people do bad things to each other. We do hurt each other.
Yeah.
So it's not when we say get out of victimization, we're not negating the fact that other people have behaved badly. I think it's really important to hold the complexity of that.
So we have the first question, which is who? Okay. The second question, I just want to make sure I have people on this following this thread of what do I need to let go of? And the third question is,
how will I now need to grow in order to prepare myself to receive that future into my life and be able to sustain it?
How will I need to grow?
I need to
welcome that into my life and to sustain it. This is amazing. Okay.
Well, look, because a lot of us are not really, as much as we might want love, we don't really trust ourselves to not give ourselves away, to disappear ourselves, to become codependent. I had a particular pattern of getting involved with narcissistic people. And I had to look at, who am I as a co-narcissist? What's my 3% there? And I'm going to need to really grow my ability to keep my first attention on myself so that I don't become invisible to myself, because I'm all, into their world, which was how I was sourcing safety, by the way. I call that pseudo safety strategies. I'm just going to bond with you and be like indispensable so you won't leave me. But it was more like, okay, so when I look at how I need to grow, I have to really grow in my ability to assess and know whatever I'm feeling in the moment. and develop this like internal awareness of what I feel, what I need, what my preferences are. And then I need to grow my ability to express that to someone, even if I'm afraid they're going to be unhappy with me. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I learned during this period about codependence is that codependence that is really based on a fear that people are going to leave you. It's really based on the consciousness that was formed in really often in the womb. It's very, very primitive. I'm all alone here. And so there's a panic that other people are going to leave. And disapproval or disagreement, displeasure can be a form of abandonment when you're codependent. Even just somebody not being happy with what you just said can be like, oh, just trigger that fear. So there's the way I'm relating to others, but it's also mostly how I'm relating to myself. But I'm soothing myself to not be scared, that it's okay to have someone disagree with me. And as a matter of fact, if you really become a student of happy, healthy love, which I encourage all of us to do, one of the criteria of healthy love is that you have to really allow someone the freedom to say no to you and disappoint you and not put your wall up or shut your heart down.
You know,
right?
Katherine, there's something that you say in the book. I just want to pull a thread there so I don't lose it. It was
Okay.
one of the biggest, there are many massive lessons that I got in your book, but one that really stuck out to me that I still hold true, that has helped me in many moments, is that disappointment is like the fast track back into our old story and that false sense of self. And I've watched myself in dating, like people in this community know, because I talk about it, that I've been dating again, thanks to your book, thanks to your work, and meeting incredible people, and watching that when I get disappointed, how immediately I go back to the story from my childhood. I'm not enough. No one's going to love me as I am. I'm all alone. If I show my real self, see if I'm my real self, then nobody will really like me. Because it came from that childhood wound of me being afraid to come out of the closet and be myself because I thought my family would disown me. That's that abandonment wound that you talk about. And so watching the moment that I get disappointed and hearing that phrase in my head, it kind of empowered me to watch what happens in that pattern when I get disappointed and be able to be tender with myself and kind of pull myself back. And so this was a massive growth edge for me that I learned reading your book. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest obstacle, is what we call the false love identity, the self that we created in response to the relational field we experienced in our childhood, because that was the time we were forming an identity. So the fast track in that moment. So first of all, awareness. Oh, I've been disappointed. Okay, let me watch my consciousness, because now this is where you go. But the key question to ask ourselves in that moment is, first of all, you locate where the feelings are in your body, and then you say, sweetheart, how old are you?
Say that again, sweetheart, what?
How old are you?
Yes.
Right, because the moment you say, how old are you, the part of you that's asking is in your adult self. So you're disidentifying. And usually what happens for us where we get in a lot of trouble is we're so overly identified with our feelings that when we collapse into that old story, and it is a somatic kind of energetic collapse into the despair of it, the anxiety of it, the fear of it, the depression of it, and to begin to just see that as not a true self, but a traumatized self. And to then work with ourselves where you say, sweetheart, the truth is you are more than worthy of love just as you are. You need do nothing to try and prove your value to anyone. And the relationship you're looking for is a heart-to-heart, authentic union and communion where you get to be your whole self. Yeah. Right. So that's the muscle. And how do we show up differently? Because you're going to show up one way from the I'm not good enough story, and you're going to show up completely differently from the deeper truth of who you are. And that is I have a line on my deck by my desk, which I'll read to everybody. My favorite metaphysical quote by Neville Goddard. You are free to choose the concept you will accept of yourself. Therefore, you possess the power of intervention, the power which enables you to alter the course of your future.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm doing this as fast as I can because I only got 8 months here.
Yeah.
And I've got to undo a lot of ways of relating and a lot of, so I'm just on the court with it. Oh, final question.
Question. Yes.
Right. Final question. What's my next step?
What's my next step?
Right. I can't change everything today, but I can do one thing today, and it keeps it manageable. So it's a daily practice, and you have to be in action. We are a very psychologically sophisticated group, and most of us have an understanding of why we are the way we are. We know what happened way back then. We know our imprints. We know our tendencies, but we're not necessarily in action, following our deeper knowing to find our way to that future. Miracles, I think, are the natural order of life, but they have to happen through us.
Ooh,
they don't really
I love that. Miracles are the natural order of life, but they have to happen through us. That's one to type in, everybody.
Right. So we are the co-creators. Like, life can only do for us what it can do through us. If we keep making bad choices, if we keep showing up in ways that are self-defeating and self-destructive, and we don't have the courage to actually try on new ways of showing up and take the risk that someone might be mad at you, or someone might not like what you're saying or asking for, and then trust life enough to know then that's just not my person.
Yeah.
And you start to have fidelity to the future you're standing for. I mean, it's and here's the thing about this. Radical transformation can happen very quickly. All of this, like years and years in therapy. Now, I'm a psychotherapist. I get to say this. And I'm all for psychotherapy. There is a lot of healing work we need to do. If you dissociated, like I was dissociating with my eating disorder in my 20s, I had a terrible eating disorder. You have to go and deal with that. You have to acknowledge the wounds. But transformation is a different domain than healing.
Yeah, we're working in a completely different field. And you talk about this in the book too, like just when we're working in the space of miracles and we're working in this kind of transformational space, it doesn't follow these linear time-based things. We're in a very different spot.
Right.
Katherine, I want to ask you something because I think so going in these 4 questions, and one of the things that I think is so important to people that they can use in any area of their life is this question that really shifted things for me is who do I have to become to be ready to receive that which I am saying that I want? Like, that is really a big deal, to say, because we're so focused on what we want and the vision board and here's what it looks like and here's what I'm going to get and here's what I have to do to get what I want. Even we go to that step, and we even go to what do I need to let go of to get what I want? But I think that first step of who do I need to become? So I'd love for you to unpack that a little bit more because I think it's really important for people.
Yeah, let me tell you, the first time I really remember kind of catching this was actually in my mid-30s. And that was when I first started to feel intuitively that I was going to be speaking to a lot of people. Now, as I said, I didn't create any success when I was in my 40s. So I had no evidence for that at all. I was like, I'd had a failed acting career, failed singing career. I mean, this is in my brain, right? I temped for years. I did do meaningful, heartfelt work with people who were homeless, which I was really proud of. I actually founded a nonprofit for a while, but I was like almost homeless. I was self-doing it. Nobody was following me. I was so shy, even in my homeless project, which was a music project called In Harmony with the Homeless. It was so great. I went down to Skid Row and I brought musicians down and we co-wrote songs about people's healing and transformation. It was very heartfelt and beautiful. But I was so shy. I used to tell my partner what to say to the group to instruct people. And then he would talk for me and I would just sit there and smile. Like, I just could not do it. But I started to feel like I think I'm going to be talking to thousands of people. This is before the internet and Zoom, and like, how would that even happen? Right. So my mother was visiting me. And for some reason, I chose to tell my mother. Now, my mother's not necessarily a visionary, so it was hard for her to hold that. She was like, oh, okay. And what are you going to be talking about? But it was good that I said it out loud. But I really remember saying to myself and making a very conscious decision. And I said, Catherine, I don't know. This is me talking to myself back then. I don't know how that could possibly happen. But if there is a possibility that you will one day be speaking to thousands of people, you better become a woman who has something valuable to say. And that became my North Star. So I never tried to run out and become famous.
Yeah.
But I did really strive to be a person who lived in integrity and had wisdom. And I began to make the shift from my own personal struggles. And this, hear me out on this one, everyone. This is really important. Relating to my personal pathologies in an impersonal way. So in other words,
yeah.
Well, it's like when I would feel insecure, or I would feel like I didn't like myself, or I didn't like my body, because that's always been a big thing for me. Oh, my thighs are too big. I'd say, wow, this is how women feel about their bodies. This is happening in the collective. This is not just me. This is all of us are feeling so bad about ourselves based on the size of our thighs. Wow, what's really true about that? And I would start thinking in terms of the collective. One of the things I want to share about this, the importance of starting to train ourselves to relate to our personal experience in an impersonal way, is, we all have heard of the hero's journey, the heroine's journey. And we have, these wonderful Joseph Campbell and Carl Jung, and, talked about kind of the trajectory of our lives of health and healing. Or we talk about Abraham Maslow, the hierarchy of needs. So, we're kind of going up the ladder, and you start out with just your survival needs and your esteem needs. And the pinnacle, according to what most of us assume was the work that he did, was self-actualization, to become ourselves fully. But, before the end of his life, he added another tier. And that other tier was self-transcendence. Who am I for others? And that when you look at the hero's journey, we all go through our darkness and our wounds, and to find a way to then repurpose our personal pain into an offering of goodness. That's where life gets beautiful. When we feel like we've kind of graduated, that we have a sense of, fulfillment of our deeper purpose for having been born. It's always about what we can, how we find a way to spin straw into gold and give golden offerings to people.
This is so beautiful. I mean, first of all, the amount of golden nuggets that we just got from you is like so big. And I think like what I want to share with people is that this work, I will tell you, this book, Calling in the One, I read it cover to cover last year and went through the whole 7-week process with you. And you were doing a group at that moment in time as well. And it's crazy because it has transformed the way that I look at everything, not just a partner. Like it's the way that I look at anything that I want in my life. How can I be? And that's what I think is really the thing about your book, right? Calling in the One is about you becoming the one. It's like, I'm becoming the one. Yeah. And then the one can arrive, the other one can arrive. So I think
right. Because when we're not ourselves fully, or we're operating from wounds, we keep bringing in people who match that version of ourselves.
The wrong one.
Yeah.
The wrong one.
For me to be with narcissistic people, that was the invisible me. But when you're breaking up calling in, here's the thing too, when I was doing my own process, it wasn't like the moment I saw it, I stopped attracting people who were narcissistic. I just had to make different choices, which was hard sometimes.
Yes, girl. Listen, yes, it is, because you see the same thing show up. And I remember getting irritated with myself, and you helped me so much in this book, thinking I've done all this work on myself. Here I'm going to go on this date, and it's the same kind of dude. So I was thinking, oh, I'm messing up. right? But it wasn't that I was messing up. And you talk about this so deeply in the book. It was that the universe is giving me the opportunity to choose differently.
Right.
And that's the actual way that we put it into action, right?
Mhm. Yep, yep.
Yeah.
That's
See, I've
it.
been a good student.
You're an excellent student.
I've been a good student. Well, I have to ask you one more question, Katherine. This is one that I've been wanting to ask you personally for this, because I think that it is going to help a lot of people. The way that you talk about anchoring into how it feels to be in the presence of what it is that you desire in your life and what you want. The way you break it down in Calling in the One, I mean, I've heard that phrase from my first ever foray into the spiritual world, right? Like, what does it feel like? But I never got it until I heard you, like really got it until I heard you talk about it. So I'm wondering if you could chat about it a little bit. And then if we have time to do a short practice of some sort with people, in any way, that would be really a beautiful way to embody it.
I don't know exactly what I said that spoke so much to your heart. So if I don't reiterate that, please speak it. But I will say that consciousness is relational. And a lot of times we think of our beliefs as just something that I kind of came up with on my own about myself. And so I'm going to just write about it in my journal, or I'm going to meditate alone, or I'm going to read a self-help book. But beliefs are actually in the field between ourselves and others. They were formed in relationship, and they actually need to be transformed in relationship. But the brain doesn't know the difference between what's actually happening in the physical realm or what's just happening in my own consciousness, like our version of virtual reality. So what we can do to transform ourselves, we really need to you can almost bring in the partner of your future. And you have to just sit there and just kind of imagine that person. And you have to do it without seeing their face. If somebody's face comes up, you say, thank you for reminding me how good it can be. And some of those things worked for me and some didn't. And so you just kind of leave it open to the universe, but you actually imagine yourself being loved. You imagine yourself being respected and valued. And particularly where you're really wounded and hurt. So for you, Justin, it's going to be like, there's parts of me that are not being accepted. So I'm really loved, but not all of me. So it's almost like for you in your visioning, you would almost go to the place where, you feel a little embarrassed or, not necessarily strong. And then you just feel your partner looking at you like you are answered prayer for that person. And they're so grateful that you trust them enough to let them into that part of you and to be there, and that their love is healing you. And then you put it into the senses, like, what does it sound like? And maybe it sounds like him sniffing because he's so touched that he just gets a tear and he gets a little sniff because he's really connected with you. Or what does it, smell like? Well, maybe it smells like flowers that he brings to you. Or maybe it feels like him, spooning you from behind and holding you with his strong arms because he just loves you so much after you've shared this tender thing with him. You really get it into your body. What does it look like? It looks like, your partner opening your refrigerator door because they are so comfortable in your home, or maybe you live together and you're cooking together. So you just give little snippets, and it's almost like you have to, for some of us who lived without this, or who had really toxic relationships or really scary relationships, you have to take it like little bites at a time. It's almost like if you were in a dark cave and suddenly you're in the sunshine. You have to adjust to it. So if you had for those of you who do have, fears about letting someone get too close because you have abuse in your past, you notice what it feels like the moment you say, I'm not comfortable with that. And they say, oh, okay, sweetheart, I got it. What do you need? I love you. Let me know how to make you feel safe. You have to imagine it, what it looks like for you to feel real. For me, it was that somebody would actually be there for me. And I had a really deep I'm alone story. No one is really there for me. Everybody always leaves me. Consequently, I'd go out with married men too because I didn't have any expectations somebody would be there for me. So the visioning was like, wow, what does it feel like when I'm sick and somebody's there making soup for me, or rubbing my back, or doing my laundry because I don't feel well? What does it feel like when my bank account is running low, and someone says to me, don't worry, sweetheart, I got us, right? It's like beyond your old story, outside of that identity, but it's the future that's possible for you.
Mm.
So should we do a little
Yeah,
visioning?
let's do a short practice together.
Okay, so just closing our eyes together, just inviting you to take a nice deep breath as though you could breathe all the way down to your hips. Moving into a place of deep listening and receptivity, opening yourselves up to the spectrum of possibilities that are present. And even if through this conversation only there's a little crack in the door, there's like 3% of you that believes, wow, maybe this could be so for me. Just inviting you to put all of your attention there. And notice that as you do, the angels surrounding you rejoice. Yay, something new is possible. Just feeling those benevolent beings to the left of you, to the right of you, before you and behind you, above you and below you, supporting you, cheering you on. Yes, all things are possible. It's true that your past does not define what's possible for you in love. You do in this moment. And so having the courage to claim a future that is very different than the past. Saying yes to that possible future. Yes to the intention of manifesting that possible future. And trying that future on right now. And just asking yourself, what does it feel like? As though life had given you a miracle, and that was already so in this moment. Seeing if you can get images of maybe your beloved's hand in your hand. What does it sound like? Maybe you hear your beloved singing in the shower. What does it smell like? Maybe it's dinner being cooked for you while you're finishing up your work. Now imagine that person before you, asking yourself, who am I here? And stretching, I'm loved, I'm safe, I'm seen, I'm respected, I'm valued. And then just stretching yourself. Asking yourself now, what will I need to let go of to manifest this future? Listening for just the first intuitive thing that comes up. It can be simple, something concrete, like I need to get rid of the clutter in my bedroom. Or it can be deeper. I need to forgive my mother. I need to give up that resentment. Next question, how will I now need to grow? And just listen. I need to grow in my ability to discern and own my healthy needs in relationship, and to cultivate the capacity to have the courage to express them, to elevate my expectations that anyone I let into my heart, into my bed, is somebody who actually cares about what I feel and need. And then final question, what's my next step? To co-create that possible future with the universe, to bring that future into fruition and to get my life in alignment with that reality and midwife that possibility into the manifest world. And when you're ready, Just open your eyes, take some notes, and get into action.
Oh, I'm like trying to rush and take my notes because I just did it with you, but I remember.
I know I went a little fast because I didn't want to run out of time.
No.
But
This was beautiful. Go ahead. You were going to say.
Yeah, I just want everyone to know the process. It's that simple. You can do this every morning. And as Justin saying, you do it everywhere. You do it about finances, any part of your life that's kind of bringing you down, taking you out, some old pattern that feels like it has you. You know, this is how we create from the future backwards. And it is a transformational technology that is available to all of us, particularly effective for those of us who've really been struggling, but who are committed to living a rich, full life and finding our way to the higher possibilities of who we came here to be.
A freaking men. Aho, salam, everything, om, shanti, everything. I mean, this is just so wonderful. You know, Katherine, I have to make sure that I take a moment right now to mention your coaching program. And my community knows this is not to like sell anything to them. I mean, really, you have the free webinar that people would watch. But the reason why I think the coaching program is so valuable and important is that it allows each of us to become like nodes of healing in the world, spreading this kind of work into the corners of the world and to types of people that you or I or somebody else may never reach, may never touch. You know, and so I just feel so grateful that you are even doing coaching and certifying people, because a lot of people at your level have this ego thing of like, well, I have to be the one doing the work and I don't want anybody else doing what I do, right? I'm the New York Times bestseller, I'm this, but you have this so generously passed on this knowledge and this technology to other people. So I would just love for you to talk a little bit about the webinar, and I'll make sure that I put the link in the chat box for people here, and people listening to the recording, I'll have it as well. And just anything you want to share about this and who it's for.
Well, first of all, thank you for that acknowledgement. I mean, I think we're both cut from the same cloth. We recognize this is a we conversation. We are evolving consciousness and culture together. And there's not a lot of room for ego anymore. And I'm just really grateful. I to tell you, I play a little game with myself to keep my ego in check. I say, well, I can always go back to waiting tables. But I mean it like I don't want to buy my own press or whatever the fame is. Like, I'm really in this, the reason why you're in this. We're in this together. All of us are in this together. And it's a privilege to be at the front of the room at this point in my life. The coach training is probably where I put the majority of my energy. I give people in 9 months everything that would equip them to become professional love coaches. Love coaching right now, there was a recent New York Times article about how it's kind of going through the roof, which makes so much sense in the aftermath of the pandemic. A very hot field. We've been doing this since 2007, but now is the time for love coaches. It's really caught up and coming into vogue. I teach you so much about relationship in that 9-month program. The first 6 months is steeped deeply in the program itself. And then I teach you how to be an entrepreneur for 3 months so you can go out and be successful at it. It's in my best interest to have successful coaches who are causing these kinds of miracles for people throughout the world. So we really get into the details in the program. So thank you for sharing it with people. I really appreciate it. No. It's part of my fulfillment of my deep devotion to be to really help to transform and elevate the qualities of love in the world.
I feel the same way, and I just love you, Katherine. Thank you so much. I mean, really, what a gift to be able to be in this space together and to share in community and have the impact that we get to have in the world with so much love and heart. And I just want everybody to show Katherine like massive love right now in the chat box. And the link there for you in the chat box will just take you to the free webinar so you can get some understanding of the coaching program, or even just learn some good tools for your life, even if you're not interested in the webinar.
That's true.
So Katherine, what I normally do when I have a guest at this point is I send them away and then I close out with a prayer. I do a golden nugget and a prayer, but you are such a masterful prayer. I've been very impacted by your prayer. So I want to guide people into their golden nugget, which I do every time. And then I wonder if you will do our closing prayer with us. Would you be open to that?
Thank you so much. Yes.
Yeah.
You just tell me when you're ready to pass the
Okay.
prayer. Thank you.
I will. Yeah. So everybody, I just would love for you for a moment to just place your hands over your heart, center of your chest, and close your eyes. And we covered a lot today with Katherine, all the way from our practice to understanding calling the one, to the 4 questions, to everything in between, disappointment. I mean, so many levels that we spoke to today. And so if you could think of just one main takeaway, one golden nugget from our session today, there was only one thing you could remember from the session. Just let your spirit, let your soul tell you what is that one thing that it wants to hold on to and remember. That's right. And just repeat it in your mind a few times to get it into the long-term memory. And then science tells us that we're 40% more likely to remember it if we write it down. So I invite you all to type it into the chat box, and we'll see a cascade of golden nuggets coming in now, and we'll see them all coming through. And, you know, the big commitment that I like for all of us to make is that you don't have to go out and start teaching anything in this moment, but that you just share one thing that you found valuable from today's session with somebody in your life, because everybody isn't able to be here. And so if you just share something that you learned that impacted you, you have no idea, you may never know how that impacts somebody else's life. And, you know, from one of my early teachers, Saul David Ray, he always says, never teach, just share what you know. And we can all do that from the seat that we're in right now. So there's your golden nuggets. Katherine, my golden nugget is like so massive. Same one that I have from your book. It's remembering that who do I need to become to be ready to receive that which I desire in my life, and then taking the steps to become the person who's ready to hold it, so that when I get what's there, it doesn't fall right through me, or I don't push it away or ignore it or miss it, you know? And so I'm just so grateful for you. And so if you wouldn't mind just taking us out with a prayer, I would be so grateful.
Thank you so much. So again, let's close our eyes, everyone, for a moment. And begin by taking a nice deep breath with each other and dropping our awareness down into our bodies. And just seeing if you can actually let go of your breath like a sigh, like a release, and allow yourself to be held by this force and field of life greater than you. Recognizing how deeply honored you are by all of life, how cherished you are, how beloved you are of God. But no matter what you have been through in your life or how you have suffered, that there is indeed a golden purpose, that there is a calling upon your life, that your wisdom, your kindness, your depth, and your love are deeply needed. And so together we just all offer ourselves up to life to be used in service to great light and great love. As the energies of despair and darkness are escalating in our world, may we be elevating equally and above the energies of love, possibility, and hope. May the seeds that were planted here today, where we are learning to master this new domain of creating from a positive, possible future, inspire us to stand for light, for love, for health, for healing, for happiness, for ourselves, for each other, and for our world. And may those seeds bear much fruit for many years to come. God bless each and every person here. God bless each and every person here. May we be safe. May we be free from suffering. May our hearts be enlarged and opened. And may we be in service to the light. Thank you so much. So it is, so it shall be. Amen.
Ashe, aho, salam, amen. Satnam, awen, om. Thank you. Thank you. Katherine Woodward Thomas, what a gift. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
everybody,
Love you.
we love you, dear. And all of you, thank you so much for being here at the Kingdom. Again, here is the page for Katherine and her incredible work. And we'll have that link there available for you. And I just want to thank you for being members of this incredible community here at the Kingdom where we rise together. I love you, and I will see you next session. Bye for now, everybody.